Hi, welcome back. My name's Sarah, and I am super excited for you to be here today. Today, we are going to talk about past life regressions, past life bleeding ins, and timelines. Now, a lot of us right now have been experiencing timeline shifts, and what that means is that simply different concurring realities are bleeding into our timeline we're in now. And sometimes decisions we make can alter where we're projecting ourselves forward into. So let's start off at the very beginning and talk about reframing what past lives mean. Because a lot of us have associated with past lives of actually being in the past. We're taught that past lives are linear. We have our past, our present, and our future, when in reality, they're more like parallel timelines all happening at once. My friend Miriam likes to describe it as an accordion. They're all interconnected, they're just running parallel to each other. You, as a human being, exist simultaneously in multiple expressions of our reality. So, multiple dimensions, multiple occurring realities. And when we have blips or glimpses or felt senses of different timelines, it can feel like a dream that feels too true or too real. It's a bleed through. It's a sudden emotional wave with no clear origin. Now, these blips or glimpses can be flashes. It could be all of a sudden you have a flash of yourself standing in the same spot you're standing now, just in a different era. So for myself, I visited a place called Bayfield. And I was standing ready to cross the road, and I just had this flash of myself in this big red dress, kind of like from the 1730s. And it was something that came out of nowhere. And then next thing I know, I'm right back in my timeline again. So these are different ways in which a flash from a different timeline can show up in your current reality. Blips are also sometimes irrational fears or deep familiarity sensations. If you've ever met someone and you're like, I know you from somewhere, and you can just feel it with all of your body, that is probably someone you've met in a different timeline. Irrational fears, myself, I've had this irrational fear that my son drowned. And that, when I dove into it and began to dissect where this is stemming from, suddenly out of nowhere, we came to realize that was actually another timeline where I did lose my son to drowning. And so I was able to move through ways in which we can navigate, and I'll go into that later to move through that sensation so that fear is no longer present within my current timeline. So when we have these bleed throughs, I want you to know that it can be very real. It can feel very real. And it doesn't mean that it hasn't been in that past moment, but it doesn't mean that it's very real in this moment. So, how can we dissect this? Sometimes it's very complicated to dissect it, right? Our cellular memory is still very much present in this body, this meat suit we're in. So, it's going to actually take a pause to really digest or sense what you're feeling, and then digest and then release. So there are steps that we can take, which I'll go into another video of how to do this. So we might be wondering, okay, Sarah, this is a lot of information, but why does this happen? With us being multi-dimensional beings, we have very different versions of who we are. Just as though we may have different personalities for different friend groups, right? We might act one way in church when we're with our grandparents. We might act a different way when we're at a hockey game or our kids' sporting events. And then we might act another way around our sister or our brother because we don't have to wear masks, right? Just as we do that, we are have very different realities and ways of presenting ourselves in these multi-dimensional timelines. So in one timeline, we may be a bandit. In another timeline, we might be a a queen or a prophet. In another timeline, we might be a peasant. In another timeline, we might be very close to who we are in this timeline. Different versions of us are continuously processing, they are continuously healing, They are continuously being experienced by our energetic body. And sometimes these experiences overlap into our current awareness, especially right now with veils being so thin. We are really having an elevated ability to expand our awareness into these different timelines and realities that are coexisting within this multiverse that we live in. Now, what else is really curious and interesting about this is that new decisions can create new timelines. So every choice that you make creates a new thread, so to speak. So if we're walking down the road and we decide that we're going to cross over and something happens, that's a new timeline that we've made. We're still moving forward in one timeline and we've crossed over in another. This is like branches or strands or kind of like quilting. We're going to weave and interweave, but we're going to run parallel to each other. For instance, I ended up getting a divorce, and for a while there, I could still feel that other individual's energy around me. Now, in one timeline, I had chosen divorce. In this timeline, I chose divorce. But that other timeline, when we were still married, was continuing on. And for a very great deal of time, I could still feel that energy swirling around me. Maybe you've had this where you've changed jobs or you knew that you've mentally made the decision to change a job, but you still had the swirling energy of having to go to work every day until you were able to step out of that job. But you had two coexisting timelines happening because you were made the mental decision that you're quitting your job, so you were already projecting yourself into a new timeline of job searching, the job you want. You were already moving in this direction, but you were still simultaneously moving forward in the direction that you were previously going. It's complicated sometimes, but I promise you stick around and we'll get a little bit more clarity here. As humans, when we have new timelines occur, we can still feel people around us. The easiest way I can describe new timelines is through the portal of death. Now, when someone passes away, their physical body is no longer alive, but their spirit, their energetic body, is still very much alive and vibrant. And they've just turned the channel to a different frequency. So you can no longer see their spirit, but you can feel their energy. And so when they've passed on, when they've left their physical meat suit or earth school, we then become a different frequency. We can become an energetic frequency outside of our physical body. And with that, we've probably, if you're like me and many people I talk to, you've probably had an experience where you could smell grandma's perfume, or you could feel someone brush your arm, but no one's there, or you just felt your loved one around. That is very much that timeline continuing on. Their timeline is changed. They're no longer in your timeline of physical reality, but they're still coexisting in a different timeline. Their frequency has changed, but they're still there. So when we think about different timelines, we've just dialed into a different concurring reality. Very The more we go into it, the more complicated and complex it gets. But to keep it very simplistic, if you think about just drawing parallel lines on a sheet of paper, you're up here and you're bopping along, but you have this other timelines that are kind of bopping along together. And sometimes with sleep and with psychic abilities and different things happen, they can bleed through and they can start to weave up and through, just like if you're sewing. So, what else is really cool about timelines is that we as human beings have cellular memory. The body holds not only our physical memory, but our emotional memory, our energetic memory. Our body is a great timekeeper. It is, I wouldn't say timekeeper actually. It's a great, like, index for us to keep track of everything that's happened. It's going to keep track of everything we've felt, everything we've witnessed, everything we've seen, sensed, experienced. It's going to hold our physical, emotional, and energetic body deep within ourselves. Unprocessed sensations and experiences create loops within our nervous system, within many different organs within our body, and create reoccurring patterns. So we might have lingering sensations of fear if we were a child that got yelled at for doing something wrong. We might then be fearful of making a mistake at work as an adult and be terrified of confrontation because that cellular memory of being yelled at as a child lives within our nervous system still. When we've been able to process these things, we've been able to feel those sensations arising, feel the anxiousness arising from confrontation, we've been able to become aware of it and move through it, whether that's through breath, whether that's through intellectualizing and understanding and dissecting where it's stemming from. Maybe it's through EMDR, maybe it's through somatics, maybe it's through talk therapy, maybe it's through shamanism. We've then been able to integrate and complete these cycles so that we can move through. Now, when it comes to death and unresolved energy, not all experiences were being able to fully process. So some trauma was possibly suppressed or interrupted or never felt because you never felt safe to feel it. And that's okay. That energy is going to still show up as active energy within our bodies, and now might be showing up in these blips through bleed throughs of the timeline, like my fear of my son being drowned. Um, it can show up because it's not been completed and it's time to now complete it. So for myself, I was able to go through different therapies like EMDR. I was really dove into shamanism and somatics to move and also intellectualize and prepare myself, being smart about, okay, we live near a big body of water. Life jackets if the water's choppy or there's a possible undertow. We don't go swimming. We take swim lessons. We have signals, hand signals. So if there's danger, I can communicate through hand signals, which they are very aware of and listen to right away. They know that there's consequences if they don't listen to those hand signals, like it looks like the current's changing, you need to move over or get out. So being able to have multiple tools in your toolbox to complete these cycles, whether it's through coming to a practitioner like myself, where I work with you to dissect and understand and um, almost go back in a way which we not only meditate, but we go into a trance-like state where we feel the sensations within our body. We weave through past lives through regression to see where it stems from. And then we work with our version of ourselves in that timeline to then heal and move through. So then when we come back to this timeline, to this time and space, we can breathe. That has completed, that cycle has been completed. So when we are able to do those steps of really feeling, understanding, shifting, and integrating to be able to feel and heal, we can complete a cycle. Past life bleed throughs is something I've said a few times, right? It's just that multidimensional overlap or parallel self-awareness. And oftentimes we habitually take it on as this is mine, this is happening right now in this current reality. But sometimes that's not the case. And we can do little tests like using our body like a human pendulum. And all that is taking a breath in and really rooting down, grounding down. So you can do that now, just taking a breath in and then closing your eyes or coming inwards and then just grounding into your seat or your feet. And then just when you're ready, asking yourself, is my name, and saying your name. And you might lean in if it's a yes, you might lean back if it's a no, or your body might signal in a different way. Warm, cool, anxious, relaxed. There's different ways and different tells your body will have to communicate your truth and your non-truth with you. So you can do and use this tool to ask yourself, is this mine or is this not mine? Is this from this timeline? Is it from a different timeline? Strong emotional charges without context are oftentimes past life or different timeline uh, occurrences. Your body is often reacting to these circumstances before your mind truly understands. So, as much as I love to live in the spiritual and intuitive world, we also have to be grounded in this physical world as well, and using your logic to sometimes dissect and what I call putting on your Nancy Drew hat to really be a detective in figuring out where this comes from is important. So, being able to not analyze but feel. I know I just said using your intellectual ability to dissect and understand and becoming Nancy Drew, but we also want to take that pause to honor what we're feeling in our body first, because, like I said, our body is going to react before our mind understands. So we want to honor that. We want to take that first step is not analyzing but feeling what's showing up in my body and being able to regulate your body. So something's showing up. Fear of my son drowning. Oh my gosh, I'm anxious. My stomach is turning. My body is tightening into itself. My jaw is clenching. I'm starting to really breathe shallowly. I'm going to integrate my practices. I'm going to regulate my body. So I'm aware of my body is feeling these sensations. I've given it the honor of noticing what's moving on. I'm going to breathe into my body. Maybe that's just taking a big sigh. For me, I like to take it a couple steps further where I'll breathe in to my back body and then expand that breath outwards like an accordion to really enhance my ability to bring in oxygen. So I'm going to inhale into the back and inhale further out, increase my O2 capacity to the sides, and then exhale slowly out. You can do box breathing as well, and that's just taking equal counts of breath in, pause, breath out, pause. So it could be inhale for 3, pause for 3, exhale for 3, pause for 3, repeat. Letting yourself slow down the breath, deepen the breath, maybe even giving a shake, doing some heel drops where you come up onto your toes, squeeze your shoulders to your ears, and then exhale and drop back down onto your heels, and just rocking up and coming back down is a great way to really begin to regulate your body and bringing your body into this place where it feels safe to feel and sense and understand what's coming through from a past life or even in your everyday life. This is great. These are great tools for that. Then you begin the discernment process. This is where we can ask ourselves, what is one thing that is showing up in my life right now that feels bigger than this moment? You can notice the sensation and ask yourself from this current sensation, right? So that thing that is feeling bigger in this moment might be that fear of the drowning accident or your son drowning like I was having, right? That irrational fear. That was the big thing that was happening in this moment. And then you begin to notice the sensations, right? The sensations, we've regulated our body, we've sensed what's going on, that tightness, that tightness in the jaw, the flipping of the belly. And then we're going to ask ourselves, what is here beyond this? Is this a story I'm telling myself, or is this actually happening right now? Is this mine, or is this from a past life? And we can use that pendulation in this moment to figure that out. This is where I like to call in my colleagues or someone else to help me journey or uh, go on a soul retrieval or EMDR to really move through these processes. Ooh, my dog just jumped at the door trying to get in. That's why that jolt was. So all timelines can exist at once. Like an accordion, they're continuously expanding and compressing. You're not going back to that timeline per se, you're just tuning into another layer. So even when we do a shamanic journey or a soul retrieval, we're not going back in time, we're just accessing another layer. We're moving through that veil to see and sense and help close out a cycle so that this physical body and reality we're in can move with a little bit more ease, with a little bit more expansion and capacity for this lifetime. We're in shamanism, we say when we heal ourselves, we heal 7 generations behind and 7 generations ahead. And that's very much what we can do with these knowing, these knowledges, these tools. We can begin to not only heal ourselves in these timelines, but also heal others through healing ourselves. It's all interwoven, right? We are all interconnected. So the body is our access point, regulation is our gateway, and awareness without attachment is truly the key to being able to tap into these other timelines and have that awareness of when you have these blips, these bleed throughs to really begin to heal and create closure through these cycles. So you don't need to travel anywhere to shift your perception. It's all within you already. You hold the tools. And, reminding yourself that past lives are not actually past lives. That's a farce. It's actually parallel lives running all together in different frequencies, different multiverses, different realities. So, I want to thank you for sticking with me today. I hope that you have had some kind of benefit from this little mini lesson. And if at all this resonates with you, please comment below and let me know, when have you had a past life experience or a bleed over or a bleed through? What have you noticed? Was this helpful for you? If you wouldn't mind subscribing, liking, sharing so that someone else can maybe benefit from this knowledge, I would be ever so grateful. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time for yourself, for learning a little bit more about you.